Well, hello and welcome once again to the DCL Podcast, where we're inviting you to sit back, relax, and we'll be on our way shortly.
Well, welcome back to the DCL Podcast, your podcast to cruise a little smarter. I am your host, Lake, and I am once again joined by my co-host, Christy. Christy, how are we today?
We are well. How are you?
I am doing pretty good. I love when we do these, early afternoon shows.
I know, we're not so dead tired and needing to go to sleep very soon. In theory, we have a little more energy.
Yes. Well, this episode will probably make us tired because we have quite a bit to unpack here, but I am very excited for this one, as I always say for every episode.
Now I would like to keep track if you ever say, God, I'm not looking forward to this episode at all.
I'll be like, oh man, cruising on the Wish. What could be worse?
All amazing.
Well, let's jump into the show here.
Let's get a show.
Yes, we have, again, quite an amazing itinerary. We're going to be starting with a Barcelona shore escape leading into the 2024 DVC European Member Cruise. And to talk about this awesome ABD DVC cruising combo here, we'd like to welcome back Brooke to the show. Brooke, how are you today?
I'm doing great. Still getting back into, the time change with 2 weeks of travel, but doing well. Thanks
Awesome.
for having me back.
Absolutely. Thank you for coming on. So you've actually been on a couple times specifically talking about DVC member cruises. So why don't we start off real quick? What is the allure to you for the DVC cruises? Because that is, I think, the majority of your cruises.
Yes. So I've been on 7 cruises and 4 of them have been member cruises. And the allure for me, I think from the start, the very first one we did, we thought it would be an amazing way to celebrate 10 years of being DVC members, not really knowing much beyond they give you gifts every night. That was what we thought was the cool thing. And going into all of the cool entertainment and seminars and all of that. And being a very big Disney fan, obviously, but also I'm not a big crowd waiting in line kind of person. And I've always loved the idea of D23 and all of the amazing extras that you get to see and be part of and do there. It's always reminded me of like a mini D23 at sea. And there's a lot more chances to get to see the presentations and, get those first looks and kind of, bump elbows with cool people like Bill Farmer and Brett Iwan and even John Pelkey, but it's just that really feels special that way without the craziness of a big convention like D23. So it keeps us coming back.
Not trying to give Disney any ideas, but D23 at sea sounds too good to not think.
Right?
I was like, that does have a pretty good ring to it.
Well, before we even get to this cruise, you decided to book the ABD Barcelona shore escape. What was your thoughts behind booking that instead of either doing Barcelona on your own beforehand or going and just getting on the cruise?
So we figured since we were going all the way out there and Tommy already planned to take 2 weeks off of work, we wanted to really take advantage of the time off. And we've been to Paris and we've been to Germany now. We were in Greece. So we wanted to explore somewhere new. And the last time we did an adventure by Disney was in 2017. And we knew that they had the escapes that you could either do before or after the cruise. And we wanted to see if we could even make it happen. And we actually were on a wait list at first and ended up getting on. And we just knew from the last time that we did it, they take care of everything for you. And they really make sure you're going to see a lot in the amount of time that you're there. And we just wanted to make our first time in Barcelona feel like it was worth it since we were making our way out there. So we did 2 days on our own in Sevilla, which we absolutely loved. It was such a charming place and we want to go back. And then we felt like we ran all around Barcelona for 3.5 days then because we were all over, but it really made it worth it. And actually everyone that was on our escape was going on the member cruise. And there was another adventure happening at the same time that all of those guests were going on the member cruise. They had, us, we would see the groups passing in Barcelona and there was a bunch of us taken in the city and then hopping on the cruise.
Yeah, that's awesome. Barcelona is such an amazing city. We did a day there before we did our Med cruise quite a few years ago. However, many of the sites in Barcelona pre-sell out tickets very quickly. So doing something like ABD is a great way to not only guarantee that you can do the experience, but for the most part, skip a lot of those lines as well.
Yeah, that makes it absolutely incredible. They're like, all right, we're going to La Familia, like we're walking in right now, and you walk up and they're like, you basically get fast pass for everywhere that you're going. And the really cool thing is that you have your adventure guides, and then they pair you up with a local guide, someone that is already, that's what they do, is they're touring these places and sharing about it. So it just feels like such an authentic experience because you have people that live there or that grew up there that are your Disney adventure guides, and then they're pairing with a local guide. So they just know everything about it, and they know how to, get in and out everywhere. And you just get to see so much. And it's true. They're like, if you didn't book these tickets, you wouldn't be getting in, or you'd be standing in line. And so it just made it seamless to do all those things. And just then there are your buses, and then you get on your bus and you're just going to the next place. And almost all the meals were included for the escape. So that was really nice, because that's something also that you have to worry about when you go somewhere new, is where are we going to eat? Is food good? And for this escape, wine was included. So I don't think it usually is. So beer and wine were included. So that was nice. But yeah, you just like walk up. It feels like Disney, but you have lightning lane for everything.
What would be one or two of your like highlight experiences from the escape?
Definitely the day that we went to Montserrat. We went up the mountain on this crazy little, I was actually terrified going up. It was like this tiny little train thing that's going straight up the mountain, but they gave the option. Our guides say that they're some of the only ones that hike back down. So it wasn't super long. Like it was like 1.6 miles down, but it was really beautiful and the temperature was amazing. And the day before, it had hailed on the mountain, so we could see like remnants of that. But it was so foggy when we went up that you couldn't see anything. But as we were walking down, the fog was burning off. So it was just like such a fun way to get to experience kind of the vastness of Barcelona, that like you're in the middle of the city 1 minute, and then like you are up on a mountain and you're getting these amazing hiking views, and just the mountain, like learning about how old it was and all that kind of stuff. I absolutely loved that. And I really loved our touring on the first day, because we walked through a lot of the Gothic area, like just such like the old part of the city, which is just, it always enamors me how incredible like these cities are, that they're just there they are, and the streets are so tiny, and the stores are just there, and there's homes, and just really cool just exploring. And I loved looking at the map of Barcelona, because on our day before we got, like the day we embarked on the ship, I went for a run, and I was just watching my map because I wanted to run down to the water, and seeing how like the newer part of the city is all perfectly laid out in squares, and then you get to the older part and it's like just all like crisscross and tiny little streets and stuff. So it's really fascinating just seeing how everything evolves over time, and seeing the incredible architecture, and getting to see like parts of the Roman wall, like how like it's going from US where there's nothing really old here, and then going to seeing things that were built like in the 300s. You're like, it's mind-blowing. So I really loved that too.
Yeah, those views from up on the hills above Barcelona, breathtaking. I had accidentally discovered a hiking trail up to the top of one and had made it up there, and it was incredible. One of my favorite things from Barcelona. All right. Do you have anything else you want to touch on the ABD Shore Escape?
One of my highlights from Barcelona was the dogs. There were so many dogs. Right. They're all so well behaved. And I would we're on the bus, like going, and the guide is giving you, telling you these amazing things in Barcelona. I'm like, dog, dog, dog. So there was not nearly as many dogs in Italy as there were in Barcelona. So definitely a highlight for me.
So after doing it, are you still glad that you did it with hindsight? Like, are you glad that you guys did the short escape before the cruise started?
Definitely. I'm very glad that we did it. I felt like we really got a good outline, and also, extras in there of the city. We got to see a lot, experience a lot. It was a ton of go, go, go. Like, it's really like, it's not for the faint of heart. That sounds like a little silly, but when we checked in, they gave you a list of like all these things you could do in your free time. And there was no free time. Like, it was just, you were like, you're going here, you're going here. Like, the one day we got back from Montserrat and they were like, okay, you have time before dinner. We got back at 4:30. They were like, you're getting back on the bus at 5:30. And I was like, okay, we're just turning this thing right around. And even the first night was the only night that we had dinner on our own. But I think we got back at like, I don't know, like 7 or 7:30 p.m. And we had started at like 7:45 a.m. So we were so tired. I was like, I don't even have it in me to do anything else. So it's like, you kind of have to be prepared to like, that you are touring, you are moving and grooving. It's not exactly vacation. It's like, you're going to see the city, you're going to do the things. And, they, at the beginning, they have like a little meet and greet and they're like, if there's anything you don't want to participate in, just let us know so we're not missing you. But they were like, please don't do that. Like, don't miss out on anything. Cause you're paying for it. I'm really glad we did it. I wouldn't need to do that one again. Like, where we did Backstage Magic in 2017 and now, like, so many years later, I'm itching to do that one again. But I feel like I want to go back to Barcelona, but could do things on our own and explore on our own now.
Yeah, that makes sense. For the listeners, there is a short escape in Rome, in Paris, in London, and then this Barcelona are the ones off the top of my head that I can think of. And they line up 2 cruises in those locations. So if you're doing a cruise out of Southampton, they will have a London short escape before the cruise. The same for these Barcelona sailings. And then they will take care of the transportation to the ship as well, which is great. So, and then for Rome, for sure, you could either do the short escape before or after the cruise, depending on what your preference is. So there are definitely options, and they just link your reservations. You still book each thing separately, either through Adventures by Disney or Disney Cruise Line, and then they can link the reservations so that they can coordinate getting you there and things like that.
Yeah, that was definitely really nice, was having them handle. We put our bags out of our hotel room at the last evening. They asked us how many bags we were going to have, if we needed more tags. And then the next morning, we just had to have our carry-on, whatever we were taking on the ship. And then we didn't have to handle our luggage until it was at our room. And we got to board early and we all got to go. Like, we ended up, I think when we did our check-in for the cruise, we were like boarding group 21, but we got to board with group 5. So that was really nice because we just got to go on. And I felt like we got a whole nother day on the ship because of that. So that was definitely a highlight. It felt like a VIP experience because the port was like crazy with people and they just held their little paddle and walked us right on. And I was like, I feel so cool right now.
That's another,
nice.
I don't think I've ever heard that part before. So that's a fun little extra feature for people.
Yeah. And I know that there was an escape happening after, and the guide was there waiting for that group to bring them like right off the ship and to the hotel as well. So they definitely, it feels like a full on, like, we had somebody waiting for us from the airport when we landed in Barcelona. Tommy and I had private transportation to the hotel. It's like from start to finish, they really take care of you, it makes it feel very special and, a little fancy.
Oh, I love that.
Was this your first time on the Dream?
Me? No, the last time that we were on it was in 2012. So it's been a very long time, but not my first time. And I think that after this cruise, it cemented for me that it's more my vibe than the Wish, or because I was leaning towards the smaller ships because I've been on the Wish 3 times now and I love it. Beautiful, just really cool features, but I love the feel of the Magic and the Wonder. And this is just, similar to that, but just bigger areas. Cove was so big and the adult area is so nice and vast. And just, I loved the restaurant themes. And yeah, so I think now maybe it's my favorite, but I haven't been on the Fantasy yet. That's the only one I haven't been on, which I think those 2 are pretty similar, right?
They are, but she'll be your favorite whenever you cruise her.
Ooh.
I feel like, I think her theming is amazing. I love the peacock sort of carpet. I think you will love that. And then Minnie has her like peacock formal wear that she wears on formal wear night. I'll post it. We'll post it when we're on in June. So I will let you know, or you can follow and see. She's beautiful. And so I just know about you. I think the fantasy will win whenever you cruise her.
Yeah.
Yeah, so this will be my first time on the fantasy here, and I'm looking forward to it. We've been on the dream twice. But you're right, the 4 like classic styled ships, as I'll call them, all now do have just such a nice charm to them.
They do. And I feel like I have been able to find my way around them better than the Wish. Like I felt like I always get lost somewhere, or like there's something about it that, like, I don't want to say it doesn't make sense, but it's more like just a little more difficult to navigate. And even just, I love that the classic ships, they have a promenade. You can go for a walk or go for a run, or which also cracked me up when I did go for a run and it looked like I was just like, I don't even know what my GPS was doing, but I love that about the ships because it's just so nice to be able to just kind of take a little walk on the ocean.
All right, well, we board the Dream for this 7-night itinerary. Before we get into the ports, why don't we talk about the DVC aspect of the cruise and some of the events they had going on and what kind of stood out to you that makes the DVC member cruises different and special?
So I always love the Broadway singers and just love that they do special performances for the DVC member cruises. Last year we got a special showing of the princess, show with Susan Egan and all the princesses. And this year, the newer show that we saw, it was called Disney Hits Live. And Susan Egan was one of the performers. And then it was 4 Broadway stars from the West End. So we had never seen them before. And they were all incredible. Like I was in tears almost the whole show because it just was classic music. It was kind of just celebrating, Disney 100 and music throughout 100 years of Disney. And then Paige O'Hara came out and sang, and it was just like, as a 90s kid, jaw dropping, like there you have Meg and Belle, and like it was just amazing. And they have other fun things like advanced screenings. They had an advanced screening of, sorry, the dogs, Not a Goof. And they have other advanced screenings like of the Beach Boys thing. I think it actually just came out on Disney Plus, and something like, I'm looking at it right now. I heard it was incredible, but we did not go see it because of the timing of it. Oh my goodness. Something about the woman. Oh, Young Woman and the Sea. I heard that was an amazing feature. So they like to do stuff like that. Like you get chances to see those early. I always love when they do fun, casual things too. Like they had a game show thing that intertwined the stars with guests that were on the cruise, and that's just so fun. So one of my favorite things was what we did. It was on the last sea day. It was an animation event, and Brett Iwan, Stasia Martin, and Paige O'Hara were there, and they all were doing art just kind of in front of you, which I didn't even know that Paige O'Hara was an artist, but she's a Disney fine artist. And she was working on a canvas with watercolor. So she was there and doing watercolor. And if you've ever seen Stasia Martin, she can animate in like 5 seconds. She's just so amazing with her pencil. And she did 7 during the time where they just were asking them questions and chatting about how they started their working for Disney and all that stuff. And same with Brett Iwan. He's pretty fast. And they just kind of told their stories, and as you're watching them create art, and then at the end they raffled off the stuff that they did. And Tommy actually won one of the head of Disney Fine Art was there, and he had made these copies of the work in progress that Paige O'Hara was doing, and Tommy won one of those. And when they went to package it up for him, they asked if he wanted a picture with her, and he said no. He said he was too embarrassed. I was like, Tommy, that was your moment. But just so cool that there are these opportunities to get to experience just hearing their stories, and fun things like winning art that you saw get created in front of your eyes, and then other silly things like game shows where they had the Broadway stars up there, and they had them like just improv singing, like, oh, who was it? Kissy Simmons and Michael James Scott sang Friend Like Me, just improv, like just right in front of you. And that was amazing. And then they had Brett Iwan and the voice of Minnie Mouse, they were against each other. And then to get bonus points, they would say like, okay, you need to, in the voice of Minnie Mouse, do this or do that. And it just is so funny to see them improv. And my favorite was we got to see Bill Farmer. He sang with some of the Broadway stars. He sang A Whole New World in the voice of Goofy. And he sang Love is an Open Door in the voice of Goofy with a Broadway star. And it just is like, you're like, this is how is this even happening? Just these cool things that are just happening. And you're like, you'll never see this exactly again. So I just love that, especially being such a Disney nerd and Disney fan, getting to see these things. One of the other really cool things that we went to it was called Disney Films of Europe. And it had Leslie Iwerks, Marcy, she's a Disney historian, and then there was another host, I forget his name, but they talked about all of the influences of Europe on Disney films and talked about some of the films, how since the money was made in the UK, the films had to be made there. So Walt improvised with making a lot of the live action films and learning about the exact places of influence and all of that. So it's like, if you love history and you love Walt and you love learning about these things, and they really try to, make it work for the cruise. So they talked about some of the destinations that we were in and, influence from there. So those things they fascinate me. I get so excited to experience those and just absorb it all.
I mean, sounds just like amazing opportunities to get to meet some really cool people within the Disney company, awesome voices, Imagineers, all of that cool stuff. But another thing that people love to talk about is the swag.
Yes. Like I said, that was what drew us in our very first member cruise, was the swag. And they really theme it for the cruise. And, this time I heard somebody talking about how well thought out the things that we got were, meaning like the first thing we got was a backpack, and that they knew it could fit under a seat. They knew it was like, great for travel and all of that. This one I felt like was really travel oriented. Like everything fit in the backpack. It was all the same color scheme, and it was all very functional, which for me, I'm like, I want the cute stuff with Mickey on it. And I just love fun things. It was all really cool though. And I really liked that every evening we got a magnet that had artwork of the port that we were going to on it. We also did get one for Monaco, which they changed the itinerary. So we did not go there, but we got a little magnet with Mickey on it for Monaco. And then we got large prints of all of those magnets. So those we have to frame them because they're real. The artwork is just so fun, and it's done by Brett Iwan. So it just makes it special. And they also told us that they're not just like copy and print it out. They do this crazy screen printing process where they like individually print every color on these prints, and they take like 4 months to print. So they're, really special and high quality for gifts. So the swag is definitely there, and just the opportunity again, like to win exclusive artwork. And that they every day at the DVC desks, they have extra gifts that if you go, they hand out, and they have little luggage tags that said Italy on them with little Small World characters and hats and eye masks. And I'm trying to think if there's anything else there, but just fun stuff all around. We had difficulty packing everything. We tried to be good about having extra space, but we also, for 2 weeks, each only had one big suitcase and a carry-on. So with a lot of finagling, we did get everything home, but our carry-ons definitely weighed more than the allowance for international flights, but we were all good.
So, of course, we've got lots of fun things going on the ship, but you also have a ton of absolutely breathtaking ports on this itinerary. Why don't we go through and just talk about what we did in each of these days, starting with your first stop in Livorno?
Yeah, so our first stop in Livorno, we did a get your guide on our own, of just that we were going to go up the Leaning Tower of Pisa, and we wanted to tour the cathedral that's there. And the tickets that we got actually had access to a couple other things in the area, but we were hungry. So we definitely we wanted to make sure we got our time for going up the Leaning Tower of Pisa and doing the cathedral. But we decided to do the figuring it out from the ship to getting there, which actually was fine. They had shuttles right there because on that port specifically, you can't walk out. It's like you're not allowed to walk. So they had Disney Dream shuttles that took you to a spot out of the ship. And then from there, it was about 1.5 miles to the train. So we walked to the train. Then it was like a 20-minute train ride. It was less than €3 for us to take the train. And then we walked, it was a little less than a mile to get to the area where the Leaning Tower of Pisa was and everything. And it was just a nice way to explore too. I love, with running, I love exploring things on foot. So going for walks and just kind of getting to go through neighborhoods and stuff was cool. And then, getting to navigate a transportation system, it was easy enough to just get our tickets and go. So that was cool, but it definitely is something that you need to plan time and like give a buffer. And Pisa itself, we knew there, like, it wasn't going to take a ton of time. Like from our research, it wasn't like we needed several hours to do that. So we really enjoyed it. Going up the tower was funny because like the stairs in there, like, are definitely like, like slanty and have divots in them from over time, people climbing up. But it was a cool experience getting to see it. And I feel like doing that, I don't want to say we never have to go back there again, but it's definitely like, I would, like, if we did the same itinerary again, I would go to Florence or I would go to Lucca because I heard those are also incredible. And we definitely hit the high points of what Pisa had to offer. We ate in the most amazing cafe. It was so delicious. I'm still dreaming about my pasta pomodoro. It was so good. But it was a really fun day and just one of those things, like, you hear about the Leaning Tower of Pisa, you see pictures of it your whole life, and then just like we turned a corner and there it was. So that was awesome.
Yeah, I think Livorno is probably one of the hardest ports to pick something because there was a huge variation of what you can do. Because as you said, you can go to Florence, you can do something in the countryside of Livorno, and then of course Leaning Tower of Pisa is a huge draw for people. There's just such a diverse set of experiences that you can do like within an hour of Livorno.
Yeah.
Well, why don't we move on to the next day? A big one for many people. This has you port in Civitavecchia, but this is your gateway to Rome.
Yes. And that was our only Disney sanctioned excursion that we did. We did the Best of Rome excursion, and that one had a meeting time at 7 a.m. and we did not get back to the ship until like 6:15 p.m. So it was a long day, even just from checking in on the ship to them loading you onto the buses. And then it's about 1.5 hours to 1 hour 40 minutes just to get to where you're going. Again, so incredible to see these sites that you've read and dreamed and heard about your whole life, and then getting to just like you hop off a bus and there you are. And we had a guide that like took us on the bus and then, to and from the port. And then we met with a local guide as soon as we got off of the bus. And she's the one who took us around and talked us through everything. In 2 weeks, I've never wore so many of those little whisper systems for them to be like chatting with you in your ear, like as you're going around. But it was amazing. We got to, go into the Vatican City and be in St. Peter's Square. And then we didn't go into the Basilica, but we went into the Vatican Museum, which was amazing. And then ended in the Sistine Chapel. And then after that, we had lunch, which was part of that tour. And then we went and we got to see the Trevi Fountain. And then we got to see the Roman Forum, some of that, and then the Colosseum. So it really was like there was a lot of highlights. It was a decent amount of walking. Again, one of those not for the faint of heart days. Like you're moving and grooving.
Besides going to Vatican City, because did they drive you there or did you walk there too?
So they drove us to like a bus.
Sure.
Almost like Port Authority, I guess. And then they dropped us off there. And then from there, it was like not even 10 minutes to get to the entrance of Vatican City from where we were. So we walked.
When you left Vatican City to go into Rome proper, I guess, right? Did you walk that route again?
So we walked from where we were in St. Peter's Square to the entrance of the Vatican Museum. And then we which that was wild because there was blocks and blocks and blocks of people in line, which they like, those are people who don't have reservations. So there's just people waiting all day long to try to get in. And then we walked to a line that like 4 reservations. And then after the Vatican Museum, the bus picked us up, took us to lunch, and then brought us close-ish to the Trevi Fountain area.
Okay.
So we had just like a few minutes of walking from there. But then after that, we walked from Trevi Fountain through to the Coliseum, and then the bus picked us up at the end. So I think they said on the tour that it was about 3.5 miles of walking. Like they tell you that in the description, that it's about 3.5 miles of walking, which isn't, it's not terrible. It is on like, you know, cobblestone and stuff. And the other thing to think about was that you can't, like, you're going to churches and stuff. So, you know, you can't wear spaghetti straps. You can't wear shorter shorts. So for that day, like I purposely had on like a maxi dress that went over my shoulders and all that. So in summer months, like it can get pretty toasty with walking around, but it was an amazing day. It just, again, like seeing these dream places and just getting to experience it was incredible.
How many people did they divide up your group into subgroups, or were you all together for the entirety?
Our group size, there was 20 people, and there was only 20 on our bus. So I think there was a couple Best of Rome tours happening, but they kept the group at 20.
Good.
I was going to say, I don't think there's any way that you could keep a group bigger than that together, especially some of the places you're navigating, like the Vatican Museum, you're like packed in like sardines, like, you know, scooting your way through. Same thing around the Trevi Fountain. The only like bummer thing, again, about a day like that is I wish I had some free time just to roam around. Like we got 15 minutes when we were at the Trevi Fountain. I was like, all right, let's go throw our corn in the water and then we're going to get some gelato. I was like, we wanted to do something with the 15 minutes, like make it worth it. But you didn't have a ton of time really anywhere to, you know, roam around or mosey around. You were like, again, you're getting it all in one day. So
you really did. Okay. And then what about the Coliseum? Did you go into the Coliseum and did they discuss it, or just the outside?
Just the outside. There were other tours that offered tours of the inside, but that was a separate like ticketed thing, and I think would have taken longer. We only were at the area of the Coliseum for maybe 20 minutes. So like as we were walking up, our guide was talking to us about it. And then as we got closer, you know, talking more about the structure and the arches and then the numbered entrances and things like that. But we didn't go in. But I did see pictures of other people in Rome that went into the Coliseum. She said that it's a hard ticket to come by. So if you're traveling, something you need to think about.
Rome is huge. There is more to experience than you could possibly do on one day, especially with 3 hours of driving taking up some of your port time. Was there anything in particular that you felt like you missed out on in Rome? I know the answer is probably a lot, but if you could have added like one more site or experience, what would that have been?
I can only think of like that I wanted to have a meal that I chose. There's of course other sites that I want to see, but knowing that we were doing that tour, I didn't really do enough research on my own to be like, oh, we're missing this or not missing that. Definitely just hit the highlights. But I know I want to go back. Like there's so many things that we saw that we're like, oh, we want to just take more time here, especially the area with the Roman Forum, like leading up to the Colosseum, which is so incredibly fascinating to see just some of the marble that was just still existing and some of the columns that were still there, and how, you know, learning why like one of the buildings was almost completely intact because it still had a use, and that like, you know, as things went unused, that's when people started taking pieces from them, and that's why they were falling apart, which it's just like, you know, incredible to see even the different layers too, how they talked about like Rome being like a lasagna, that there's all these different layers of it, and that was just really cool. So there's things I want to go back to, but I can't think of something that I missed. Yeah, amazing city.
Absolutely. Well, that takes us into our next port of call. Absolutely beautiful city as well, and much more convenient to get to because everything you want to do here in Naples is usually within close proximity. What did we get up to in Naples?
Oh my gosh, that was definitely my favorite day. We did another tour through Get Your Guide that met us. It was like a 5-minute walk from the port. and they had a little sign for us, and we did a tour up the Amalfi Coast. And it was actually something a friend of mine had suggested. She said they did it on their honeymoon trip and had just an amazing day. And so our tour, when our guide picked us up, he was like, you guys got really lucky. We only have 12 guests on the tour today. So we had like a little Mercedes Sprinter van, and there were 12 of us. And the guide was amazing. He gave the tour in Italian, English, and Spanish, because there was guests with, all different languages on this tour. And our driver was just amazing. And I don't even know how he navigated up this mountain, because it was very, very windy, and it was just such an amazing day. We stopped at a limoncello. I don't want to say limoncello factory. I can't think of the word off the top of my head, but we stopped there. That was the first place. And we get off the bus and they're handing you limoncello tasting. I was like, it is 9 a.m., but here we are. So we're going to go for it. So that was really cool, because we learned a lot about the history of the area and lemons being such a big deal. And we got to see some of the production and the bottling of limoncello. And that was really cool. And then our next stop was in Sorrento. And the one thing I loved about this tour was that in two of the places, we did have an hour of free time. So we had enough time to get to wander around and check things out. And in Sorrento, we just we walked the streets, and we got to just see little shops, and it was such a beautiful day. So it was just really nice to wander around and there was an amazing terrace that you could look off into the sea, and it was gorgeous. So we stopped in Sorrento, and then the next stop was just a quick stop in Positano. Just stunning views again. We got to just kind of take in the landscape and learned about all the history and, why the name Positano, and learned that it's a UNESCO historical site, so they can't change the outsides of the buildings or anything. So just very, very interesting. And then we went to the Amalfi Coast, so I actually got to go in the water, and that was amazing. And I misspoke before. We got an hour in 3 of the places. So there in Amalfi, we had an hour, and that's where we actually ate, because by that point we were hungry. So we just found a little spot and we ate, and we got to wander. And then the last stop was in Ravello, and that was just a quiet little town, especially compared to Amalfi. That Amalfi was like jam-packed with people, and then Ravello, there was like no one. So it was really cool. It was beautiful. We saw a wedding that was going on, and the day was it was beautiful. And we met them early in the morning. So they picked us up at 7:30, but we got back to the ship at like 5:30, and they were amazing. He dropped us off like right where we had like a 1-minute walk back to go through security. Then they didn't make us go back to the meeting point. And it was really cool and really economical too. I think for each of us, it was around $90 for the day. And that included the transportation and the guide. And
it's amazing.
Especially, the Disney excursions are always really great. They're really expensive too. So we're trying to be better, especially after the Rome day. That tour was very expensive. So we wanted to do something that we got to do a little exploring on our own, and we got to see a lot, and was on the price friendlier side, I guess. And we also wanted to make sure the timing would work. That was the other thing. Our all aboard time was at 7 that night. So we wanted to really give ourselves a buffer, because with the, third party tours, they'll just leave you behind if you're not back. So we wanted to make sure we had plenty of time. I definitely want to go back. I want to spend like actual time on the coast there. Like that would be an incredible vacation. And I would love to see Pompeii. That was the other option. Like if you weren't doing the coast, my in-laws were on the cruise too. And that's what they did that day. They went to Pompeii, and they said it was really, really cool. And I remember learning about that as a kid and always being so fascinated. So would love to go back there to check that out too.
Yeah, another place with some really cool different options. So that sounds like absolutely amazing. I don't think we've had anyone on the show who did an excursion quite like that. I mean, we hear a lot about Pompeii or things within Naples, but we will definitely talk a little bit more at the end about who you book some of those through. But
highly recommend.
Okay, so that takes us into our last full port stop, and this is in Palermo, Italy.
Yes, that was very cool, because it was the first time that a Disney ship had been to that port, and we knew from our research that it was an easily walkable place as well. Like we could just hop off the ship and then basically walk into town. If you're going to do that, you need to have some willpower, because there was people there immediately with hats and magnets and trying to get you on a bus or a train or get you on anything. So we just were like, okay, keep your eye on the street, keep going. That was the only area that we were really like, you got off and there were people in your face, kind of like New York City, where they're like trying to sell you something, or as you're walking, handing you the bus schedule type of thing. But once we got through, we just looked at a map and we started walking. We knew there was a lot of churches and there was a lot of things in the city that were easily walkable and that we could get to just kind of on foot when we wanted to explore. So we definitely saw 3 churches, and everywhere there was very inexpensive to explore. The first one that we went to, we upgraded to seeing the church and the museum and the crypt, and it was €5 a person, and you just could walk in, and oh my gosh, it was just absolutely stunning. And then another one that we saw was from the 1100s. It's just like mind blowing how old the church was, and that was €2 to see. And then we went into the Cathedral of Palermo, which was like one of the most popular destinations that they tell you to visit. And that one you could go into for free, but if you wanted to get on the top of, or if you wanted to see some of the other things inside of it, it was additional, but nothing crazy. So very inexpensive to get a closer look at some of the sites in Palermo. And we walked to the palace. There was somewhere else we saw the big theater, and we saw an auditorium. There was a lot that you could see just by walking, and the architecture, again, just stunning. And our huge takeaway from our whole experience was, how were these things built? Like, it just is so fascinating how old this architecture is and how ornate and beautiful. And like, I think about the technology we have now, and then you're thinking like hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years ago, these things were built and they're still standing. And it's just amazing. The other I think this is really funny. He went to a barber in Palermo. Like, we just found one on the side of the street, and he said it was the best haircut of his life. He got his beard trimmed and his haircut. It was €15. And he went to give the guy a gratuity, and you would have thought Tommy gave him like $100, because the guy was so thankful. But the city itself, everything was very inexpensive. We went and we ate, and we found a cafe. A friend of mine on the cruise, she was like, this is what I always do when I'm going around places and I'm looking for somewhere to eat, and just pull up Google Maps and just like search restaurants around me. And she was like, don't trust anything that's a 4.6 or less. So we found this cafe that was, a 4.7 on the thing, and it was like a 2-minute walk. And we had the most incredible meal. We each had a drink. We had 3 appetizers. We each had an entree, and we had a cannoli, and it was €35. We just were like, you can't even have Mickey waffles and something for that. And it was an amazing meal, and the city was very, very cool. I think we tried to look like what other things there were really to do there. And again, like there was hiking opportunities, there was things to see on the coast, but we wanted to check out the city, and it did not disappoint.
Awesome. Well, it sounds like just an absolutely amazing cruise between the ports, the DVC events. But sadly, you do have to return to Barcelona and make your way back home.
How did you get back?
So the cruise, we disembarked on Saturday, and we flew out of Barcelona on Sunday morning. So we spent all day in Barcelona on Saturday, and then we flew from Barcelona to Gatwick, and then we flew from London to Orlando. So it was a very long travel day. I think it ended up being like 18 hours, because getting to the airport, which Tommy and I did not know, and I just felt so silly, because we pride ourselves in being good travelers, that we had to go through customs again when we were in Barcelona. So we were there so early. We found a Starbucks that had an outside terrace. We just were sitting and like, okay, it's about 20 minutes till our flight.
Oh, right. Passport control.
Yeah. We had to run then to our gate. It was a great time. And then in London, we did not realize in that airport that they are very strict about your liquids being in a plastic bag, because all of our other stops, we had no issue, but all of our bags got taken when we were coming through Gatwick. And I was so embarrassed. I was like, usually I'm so good. I'm so sorry. And he was very kind, but literally like every bit of makeup, anything I had in my bag. And he was like, since this alerted, I have to go through everything. And I'm the pouch queen. So there was a million things to go through. It was quite embarrassing. But yeah, long travel day. But we flew out.
Being the crazy person that you are, you went to Epcot after.
We did. We landed and we had a rental car booked, and we were like, it's 7:15. We can get to Epcot by 8. And so we did like quick costume change, and we knew we didn't have any food at home. So and Flower and Garden was only one more day. So we had some of our favorites, saw some fireworks on the way out. It was a whirlwind of a day for sure.
Crazy.
Worth it.
Well, what an amazing both ABD and cruise. Brooke, thank you again so much for coming on. Before we head out, I have a couple last minute questions here. First one, I did want to circle back to the app you use to book some of your third-party vendors.
We use Get Your Guide. We had looked at Viator and there was very similar options, but Get Your Guide was seamless for us. The tickets popped up right in it. You could leave reviews in it. The tours, they could message you about timing. And we had used it for the first time in Sevilla. So we knew that we liked it and the functionality, and it worked perfectly for our excursions that we chose in Italy.
I actually have a colleague that uses that company and has had great luck. And I actually, by the time this comes out, am going to set up an account. So if anybody would like a referral link through me, you can reach out to me and I will get you one. But I've heard really good things about that company and intend to look at it in the future as well for my own trip. So yeah.
Awesome. Well, Brooke, do you have any other notable cast interactions from the ship?
We absolutely loved our servers. That is one of the most fun things I think about cruising, is that you really get to know the cast that you are with. And especially on a longer cruise, a 7-night cruise, we loved Johnny and Crystal. They were amazing. They made every night fun, and just I want to see them again. I miss them already. So that was just amazing, and just the entertainment all around, just breathtaking. And I mean, I am not a crier. Like when it comes to movies or sappy commercials, not usually me. Tommy, on the other hand, yes. But the shows on the cruise line and just the entertainment definitely really struck a chord with me. And so entertainment cast just gets 10 out of 10, 100 out of 10. They were amazing.
Awesome. Well, this is probably a loaded question because it's probably a lot, but what's next for you?
So next for us, big trip wise, as long as everything goes as planned, we're taking our niece and nephew to Hawaii in the summer. So we are going to Aulani for the first time, and we're going to Hawaii for the first time. So that's the next really big thing. We have a staycation that we always do here in Disney World for 4th of July. So looking forward to that. And then I know it's going to come up so fast because September is going to be here in a blink. But then Run Disney season starts all over again. So trying to prepare for that whirlwind, because that's certainly what it's going to be. It's a giant whirlwind.
Yeah, Run Disney has suddenly become a lot with Disneyland races coming back. We will also be out there for Halloween half weekend, and then we are also doing our first Aulani trip right after that.
Oh my gosh, that's so exciting. Are you doing it like back to back, so you'll just like hop on a plane? Very smart.
Yep, we are.
That's awesome.
Going to Disneyland and then going to Aulani.
I'm very jealous. Just want to make sure that's pointed out to everybody. I'm very jealous.
Well, Brooke, thank you so much again for coming on and sharing your experiences both with the ABD and your DVC member cruise. What just an absolutely amazing trip.
It feels like the most epic adventure. I always get a little sad though, when you plan for something and you look forward to it for so long and then it happens and it's like you're supposed to smile because it happened and you're like, yeah, I'm still a little sad. But it absolutely was. It was amazing. loved it all. I'm so grateful we got to do it. I would love to do a Mediterranean cruise again and check out some other destinations. I think I was worried about what it would be like sailing in the Mediterranean, but it was really smooth and very enjoyable. So it was just awesome. So thanks for having me again, letting me gush about our experience, because it was so fun.
Let's give you a second to promote your store, your actually licensed Disney merchandise. And for the listeners, these are the ears that I wear. Her ears are the only ears I wear. And why can't I say that sentence? But also the cute little Mickey necklace with the little Mickey head. People always ask me where that necklace came from, and that is a Brooke necklace. So Brooke, where can people find you, both like on Instagram, but then also your store?
Yeah, I very excitingly just celebrated 10 years of BBBrooke, which is wild. So you can find me on Instagram, like my more personal Instagram, where you'll still see stuff and you'll see my adventures is BBBrooke. I have a shop BBBrooke Instagram, which is more products and all that good stuff. So you can check out both those places. My website, Shop BBBrooke. I'm having another launch beginning of summer, so that's exciting. And then if you are a Run Disney fan and you're at the expos, I will be, as long as everything goes as planned, I'll be at all the expos this season as well. So you can check me out in lots of places and hopefully get all of your magical gear, from ears to necklaces, band buttons, scrunchies, athletic headbands, all that good stuff. But yeah, that's where you can find me.
Awesome. We love seeing Brooke at the expos. Mm-hmm. She is always a joy to get to meet up and talk to, and occasionally meet on the course as well.
Yes.
That does usually tend to happen.
I mean, not in my section of the course, but yes, in your section, Lake, you can run into Brooke on the course.
My section. That's what they label it now.
Yes, the lake section.
Well, Brooke, thank you again.
Oh, wait. So you have to have some sort of water feature in your name. Brooke, Lake, you guys, the water feature section.
Yes.
Christy with the jokes.
I can't help myself. It's not a water feature either. Don't send me comments. Bye.
Well, Brooke, thank you again so much for coming on. That is going to do it for this episode of the DCL Podcast. We will see y'all next time. Bye, guys.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Well, that's going to wrap up our show. Once again, we want to thank Brooke for coming on and sharing her experience on this year's DVC Member Cruise to the Med. Again, check out Brooke and her store at BBBrooke on Instagram. If you're enjoying the show, we greatly appreciate you leaving us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts. We would also like to thank our Patreons who help make this show happen for us each and every week. You too can help support the show and join our community by visiting patreon.com/DCL Podcast. Whether you're boarding a cruise, enjoying a trip to the parks, or adventuring outside of Disney, on behalf of myself, Christy, and Steve, we want to wish you smooth sailing and safe travels. And we'll see you next time on the DCL Podcast.
The DCL Podcast is not affiliated with the Disney Cruise Line, Walt Disney Company, Adventures by Disney, or Run Disney. All of the opinions expressed on our shows are those of the hosts and the guests who appear on the show. If you have any questions about any of these products, please contact the Walt Disney Company.